Is it just me, or I feel like some people are overreacting with how June went? Welcome back, everyone, to the third Cubs video this season. We're going to be talking about the month of June and how the Cubs did. I mean, that's kind of what we've been doing so far. Now, we're going to start this video with their series against the Detroit Tigers and not their series against the Washington Nationals. I chose to throw that into the last video since I felt like that series fit in more with the arc of May and what the Cubs were doing at that point. And it felt like a nice cutoff before the schedule kind of kicked up in difficulty again. And it really showed with their performance throughout June wasn't necessarily great. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm not surprised they dropped two series to open the month against the Tigers and Phillies. After playing pretty bottom of the barrel competition for almost a full month and to be thrown into the fire against two of the best teams in the majors, it's a tough ask. They didn't get swept. And that's something that we can still say. The Cubs have not been swept this season. They were swept in a two-game series against the Dodgers in Tokyo, but that's it. They're at least getting one game every single time they go out and play. Now, look, I kind of expected them to drop that series against Detroit. They're a really good baseball team. At the time of the series taking place, they were the two best teams in the majors. I didn't even know that. I thought it was... I knew Detroit was the top team in the AL and in the majors as a whole, but I didn't think the Cubs were the top team in the NL. I think going into their first game, the Cubs were a half game up on, I think it was the Dodgers, for the top seed in the National League. Cool, they had it for a second. Didn't surprise me they dropped 2 of 3 against Detroit. Again, when you have Tarek Skubal going out and pitching one of those 3 games, you're going to lose, probably. More often than not, you're going to lose against Tarek Skubal. With the season that guy is having this year, there was no way the Cubs were going to beat him. It didn't matter how good the Cubs were. They were not going to beat Tarek Skubal. With how much of a heater this guy's been on, I'm telling you, they weren't going to beat Tarek Skubal. The guy has been otherworldly this season. I mean, seriously, you cannot score on this guy. He was a guy that a lot of people became aware of last season when the Tigers had their surprise push to the postseason, and now he's blossomed into a superstar. He is the best pitcher in the American League. The guy is astounding. So they lose to Tarek Skubal, which is very unsurprising, despite them being as good as they were going into that series. Didn't really matter. I didn't expect them to beat Tarek Skubal. The guy is amazing. They win on Saturday, get shut out Sunday, lose the series, and now they got to go on the road, or stay on the road, and go play the Philadelphia Phillies, who are probably the best team left on their schedule in the National League, because they've already finished playing all their games against the Dodgers. Thank God. So they go to Philly and they get the exact same result as they did against Detroit. Lose 2 of 3, win the middle game. This time, though, they cut it real close in the series opener on Monday. They lose 4-3 in 11 innings. This comes after the fact that Pete Crow Armstrong gave the team the lead in the 11th, 3-2. They proceeded to blow that lead, letting up a run on the first batter of the bottom of the 11th. They allowed 2 bunt singles, and then Brandon Marsh walks off the game, winning it for the Phillies. That's just wonderful. They respond and win the next day 8-4, but then they wrap up the series with a stinker and lose 7-2. So, again, they laid a pretty bad egg, had a nice win, and just had a closer loss, though this one was much more, I guess, painful with it being extras and a walk-off and the way it happened. I don't know, whatever. The 2 series, honestly, were pretty identical. Look, that is a tough back-to-back on the road. Now you get to come home and play the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team who has struggled mightily this season. And what do you know? They take 3 of 4. All 3 of those games are 1-run wins, including one having to be a walk-off in the 10th. Thank you, Ian Happ. Now look, 3-2, 2-1, and 3-2 again were the final scores that the Cubs won against the Pirates. They lost 2-1 in extra innings. So 2 extra inning ball games, You won and you lost one. You still win 3 of 4. You'll take the wins however you get them. Though with the fact that they had struggled a little bit against Detroit and Philadelphia, that wasn't necessarily the most reassuring thing, considering that the Pirates are a team that they should be beating a little bit more comfortably. And look, the one game they lost was when Paul Skeens was pitching. The guy pitched 5 innings. You're not gonna score a ton of runs off of Paul Skeens. The problem is that their defense did their job. It was just 2-1, and the Pirates have really, really struggled to give Paul Skeens run support this season. They finally give him a little bit, not much at all. It was only 2 runs, but they were able to pull out the win. Fine, whatever. I just am a little nervous at this point, right? You win 3 of 4 against the Pirates, but they're all 1-run games. They're low-scoring games. Not necessarily the most convincing rebound after 2 series losses, granted, against really good teams. But after that, you probably would like to see them perform a little bit better against the Pirates. But, all right, the competition gets a little stiffer. You're playing the Mariners next. You stay at home. They're hovering around 500, but if you can find a way to win 2 of 3 against the Mariners, and one of those games be nice and convincing, sure, fine, why not? It did not get better. The Mariners went into Wrigley and absolutely destroyed the Cubs defense. They scored 9 runs on Friday, 7 on Saturday, and 14 on Sunday. They absolutely slaughtered the Cubs with their bats. So the Cubs allow 30 runs in 3 games against the Mariners. Not good at all. That's very bad, actually. That's actually terrible. Though they do get 1 of the 3 games, you still don't feel great after this series because they're able to get out of that series with Pittsburgh. I totally glossed over this. I'm just now realizing they played 2 games against the Brewers at home. They split. There was 1 game that got postponed. They win by 2. They lose by 1. I'll touch on that in just a second. They win 1, but they lose 2. And the 2 games they lost, they gave up a lot of runs. So now we're starting to get a little nervous about the Cubs' defense. Real quick, before jumping back to the Mariners series, I want to discuss this Brewers series. Tuesday, they get a day off after the 4-game series with the Pirates. On Tuesday, it's a close one. Going into the top of the 8th, 3-3, and Pete Crow Armstrong makes a dazzling catch in center field. He leads off the bottom of the 8th. And on the first pitch, sends a nuke to the scoreboard out and right and gives the Cubs the lead. They would add another run and win 5-3. The next day, the defense starts to fall apart. They allow a couple bad homers. They're trailing 5-3. They give up a 3-run homer. Okay, great. It's a 5-run game. And they cut it down to 8-7, but cannot get the last run they need to tie it up. And that was with an extra day off as well because there was a game that got postponed on Wednesday. They instead of rescheduling that for Thursday, they postpone it to the next time the Brewers are in Chicago, which is in August. Anyways, that's it right there. So anyways, back to the Mariners. Cal Raleigh and his group of bats just destroy the Cubs defense. Cal Raleigh notches his 30th homer of the year. We're in late June, by the way. Cal Raleigh hits his 30th homer in this series. That guy has been unbelievable this season at the plate. I mean, seriously. And the most frustrating part is that absolutely no one is talking about it. Absolutely no one is talking about the fact that Cal Raleigh is having one of the great offensive seasons in baseball history. And I can tell you why. They're not talking about it because he plays for the Mariners. That's exactly why they're not talking about Cal Raleigh. And that's why not a lot of people know that Cal Raleigh is having a special season right now. Sorry, I feel a certain way when small market teams and small market players are playing very well, better than big market players, and they're getting less media attention than big market players because big market players will get more interaction and all that those wonderful metrics that earn people money, blah, blah, blah. I like talking about small market teams because they deserve the recognition. A guy like Cal Raleigh having this season deserves to be recognized nationwide. But because these big networks and these big companies, even the league itself, knows that teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Cubs and the Dodgers are massive draws, anything that happens with these teams, they're going to take and run with, especially if those teams are good, because they get all the likes, all the attention, all the views on the broadcasts. Like, it's a big reason why you don't see teams like the Mariners on Sunday Night Baseball, because ESPN's understood that the ratings for Sunday Night Baseball are already struggling enough. Why would they put small market teams involved? But they're playing good baseball, but it doesn't matter because they're not going to bring home the same viewership that a team like the Yankees would. So go watch your small market teams out there, especially if you don't live in the Chicago area. Go support your small market teams. Anyways, so now we get to the last week of action, and the Cubs are now taking on the Cardinals. For the first time this year, it's late June, and we finally get to see Cubs-Cardinals action, and the Cubs lay 2 eggs. They lose 8-2 in their first game. And that was bad. And Ben Brown, the starting pitcher, was sent down to the minors immediately after, which was well-deserved. The guy had an absolutely terrible performance. He'd been a little shaky going into that game, and just a terrible performance. Guy needs to spend a little bit of time down in the minors. That's fine. But you know what? Not all hope is lost, because Shota Imanaga's coming back on Thursday. They lose on Tuesday, 8-7. Tight game. Find a way to lose. Jameson Taillon lets up a bunch of runs. The Cubs score 5 in the third, but Cardinals already have 8 runs by the end of the 4th inning. Cubs are able to try and cut into it a little bit. They can't, again, get the tying run. They lose 8-7. And then the next 2 games, they shut out the Cardinals. 8-0 and 3-0 respectively. Shota Imanaga comes back from the hamstring problem he was dealing with. And I was like, fine, if he has to deal with it, let him heal up and come back stronger, help this pitching staff out. And he's coming at a great time here. But this is why I'm of the belief that 1 or 2 games really doesn't define your season. It can late in the year, but right now, it's fine. Because guess what? They laid 2 stinkers and followed up with 2 great performances. They followed up. They allow 8 runs in back-to-back games, and then followed up by letting up no runs for the next 2. It's really weird how baseball works like that sometimes, but there are a lot of people out there that panic after a loss like 8-2 and 8-7 back-to-back. There's a lot of people that panic. And look, there was some reason for panic. 1-4 in the last 5 after losing 8-7. You let up 9, 7, 14, 8-8 in the last 5 games. There was reason for panic. But regardless, they respond and win 2 games, pitching shutouts right after. And so what? Is the narrative going to switch to this team's winning the World Series? There's a lot of that in baseball, the flip-flop of it's so over and we're so back. It's so flip-floppy, especially with oh my gosh, it's insane. Some people think you win the World Series one day, the next day they're tanking. It's really weird. But that's the first time we get to see the Cardinals this season. It's on the road. It's 4 games. Play a lengthy series. You split. And honestly, getting a split after those 2 stinkers, those first 2 games, I will take. And then how about this? We end the month kind of how we started this video, with a series on the road against an AL opponent. And they lay 2 stinkers and have a nice dominating win in the middle. Really weird how that's worked so far this year for the Cubs, especially in this last month. But regardless, they go down 7-0, letting up 2 3-run homers against the Astros on Friday. They score 4 runs, but you were down 7-0. The game was pretty much over at that point. You then respond by hitting a crap ton of homers the next day to win 12-3. Felt like everyone was hitting it out of the park in that game. Top of the 4th in that game is awesome. You can see Michael Busch go yard. Nico Horner goes deep. Kyle Tucker against his former squad sends it out of the park, and they lead 7-2 at the end of the fourth. Seiya Suzuki would tack on another homer later on in the game, but it's a dominating 13-2 win on national television on Fox. That one feels good. And they follow that up by laying an egg. They can't score at all. And they get shut out with Framber Valdez on the mound. They lose 2-0. They let up 2 runs in an inning. And that's all that the Astros would need to win the series. So here we stand. The Cubs pedestrian in June. And see, the thing is, I'm seeing a lot of people freaking out about this team. I know that the Cardinals and Brewers were able to gain some ground on the Cubs, but they haven't lost the division lead. They're still in first place. They're still a good baseball team. I don't think it's time to start panicking. The panic button should not be pressed right now. If they really stink and they don't win another series until the All-Star break, maybe, and they lose the division lead in the process. I feel like if they don't win another series until the All-Star break and they lose the division lead, then we kind of need to start having a conversation on where this team is actually headed and if this All-Star break is actually going to help this team, get some needed rest so they can hit it hard right out of the break. They got 4 series left until the All-Star break. They're at home against the Guardians for 3, which should be fun. Then they're at home against the Cardinals for 3, so a really quick rematch. If you take 2 or 3 there, you at least gain a game on the Cardinals. Like, that's kind of how you have to look at it, too. It's like, you play head-to-head, you win 2 or 3. At the end of the series, you're up a game from where you were when the series started. You go on the road, you play Minnesota and the New York Yankees, and then you get the All-Star break. So it's not like the schedule lightens up here. It really doesn't. You're going to have 4 tough series. You drop all 4. If you get swept in one of them and you lose the division lead, then we got to have to start having a conversation, especially if the defense starts letting up a ton of runs. Then we start having the same conversation we've had for a couple of years now with starting pitching, the bullpen, just pitching in general has been the low spot for the Cubs. It's where they've lost a lot of games over the last couple of years. So we'll see. We'll see. But frankly, again, the highlights of this team really come from the position players. This team has a great field. Pete Crow Armstrong being a menace at center field. Kyle Tucker raking at the plate. He doesn't need to do a ton in right field, but he's doing his job out in right field. And frankly, if you're not talking about a guy at their position, it doesn't always mean that's a bad thing. Because if you're talking about someone in the field, either they're really, really good or really, really bad. So, outfield's doing just fine. Dansby Swanson's playing great defensively. Nico Hoerner at second. It's like, they've got a good field. Then you got their bats, which can get really hot really fast, but they can also just lay an egg. They're a little inconsistent right now. Pete Crow Armstrong can just do some crazy things, and the next thing you know, maybe have a stinker. You got Kyle Tucker playing well. Seiya Suzuki's hit for over 20 homers now. Same thing with Pete Crow Armstrong. Then you got stuff like Nico Hoerner. He was able to finally get some of his first homers. He was finally able to find the deep ball this month, hit a couple homers. But even before then, he was still a solid player at the plate. He was just getting on base. Then you got Dansby Swanson, who's been playing well this year. He's got 14 homers. Michael Busch, I forgot that he was on the team for a while, but he's playing well offensively. You got a guy like Kyle Tucker, who's just been a huge spark plug. And frankly, he's not even. It's really funny how going into the season, a lot of people thought that Kyle Tucker was going to be the best player on this team. But frankly, he hasn't. And that's not a bad thing, because he's still playing just fine. Pete Crow Armstrong's just having a phenomenal season. And Seiya Suzuki has been raking at the plate. He leads the team with 22 homers. Look, I'll just tell you this right now. I feel pretty good about this Cubs team at least making the playoffs. Because frankly, that's the expectation this year. If they win the NL Central, that's awesome. Should they win the NL Central? They probably should. But not the best team doesn't always win. Just ask any of the Dodger teams from the early 2020s or the 2010s. They had some really, really stacked teams. They didn't win any World Series in the 2010s. They had some of the best teams in the 2020s. They were knocked out in the divisional round by San Diego and Arizona in back-to-back seasons. So, again, teams can have stacked rosters. I mean, look at the Astros after the cheating scandal was exposed. Lost in the World Series in 2019. Lost in the World Series in 2021. They had a couple really, really good teams. Couldn't win at all. So, again, I'm not too worried yet. Look, at this point, I'll take a playoff berth. The goal is to win the NL Central, and frankly, they have a good enough team to do so. The division isn't necessarily stacked. It's not the NL West. They could win only 90 games and win this division. Heck, they probably could win less than 90 games and still win the division. But the Cardinals and Brewers are creeping up on them. They got to keep pace. They get a head-to-head against the Cardinals here before the All-Star break. But at this point, again, I will take a playoff berth. Guess what? Chicago sports have struggled in the 2020s. We haven't seen very much postseason action from any of these teams. I will take a wild card berth. And if they win the wild card series, they get to play in the NLDS. And if they win that, they get to play in the NLCS. The 6th seed in the National League has been very successful since Major League Baseball has expanded to a 6-team per league playoff format. The Phillies in 2022 going to the World Series. The Diamondbacks in 2023 going to the World Series. And the New York Mets going to the NLCS just last season. So if the Cubs are the 3 seed, oh boy, they got a team that's going to barely get in and they're going to be hungry. They better be aware of the trend that's happened the last couple of years so they don't get beat and just become a footnote in a potential legacy, a special run. Anyways, that's all I've got. We'll reconvene after the All-Star break because I feel like splitting July up to 2 videos because the All-Star break's kind of the natural halfway point of the year. I feel like that'll be fair. It'll be a review of the last 4 series for the Cubs and then kind of feelings at the halfway point, and then the end of July would be the last 4 series and kind of some overall feelings about the month of July itself. So be on the lookout for those videos, and that's all I've got. Make sure you subscribe if you liked this video. It lets me know that you guys are enjoying baseball content. It's my first year doing baseball content. Let me know if you're enjoying these videos. Leave a comment. Keep this conversation going. Like the video. Those will help me a ton to know that you guys really enjoy the baseball videos. Anyways, I got nothing else. Have a good one, guys. I'll see you in the next one.